Om Aganda Timarandasya Ganajana Shivakaya Chakshur Umrisamyena Tajma Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him.
Krishna Kirtana Ganana Tanapano.
Hare Krishna. Welcome back to this video series on the Bhagavad Gita as it is, translated by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are currently on chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. Krishna begins the 6th chapter by explaining that the neophyte yogi engages in fruitive sitting postures, while the advanced yogi, the true sannyasi, works without attachment. Such a yogi liberates himself and is not degraded by his mind's activities. Arjuna then points out that the main difficulty in practicing yoga is controlling the mind. Krishna responds by saying that one can overcome the obstinate mind through constant practice and determination. Krishna finally states that of all yogis, the one who always thinks of Krishna with great faith worship him in loving service. Text number 1. The Blessed Lord said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life. And he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no work. What is called renunciation is the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme. For no one can become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. For one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means, and for one who has already attained to yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. A person is said to have attained yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. A man must elevate himself by his own mind, not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his very mind will be the greatest enemy. For one who has conquered the mind, the SuperSoul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. A person is said to be established in self-realization is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. A person is said to be further advanced when regards all the honest well-wishers, friends and enemies, the envious, the pious, the sinners, and those who are infallible and impartial with an equal mind. A transcendentalist should always try to concentrate his mind on the Supreme Self. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deerskin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and should practice yoga by controlling the mind and the senses, purifying the heart and fixing the mind on one point. One should hold one's body, neck, head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. In chapter 5, Krishna explained how to achieve liberation through Nishkam Karma Yoga. And at the end of the chapter, he explained how to achieve that same liberation through Astanga Yoga. Now, in chapter 6, Krishna will describe the process of Astanga Yoga in greater detail. Krishna starts the 6th chapter commenting that although one who takes sannyas ordinarily gives up performing fire sacrifices, here, for the 3rd time, Krishna asserts the importance of not giving up work. The true renunciate, the true mystic, performs his duty but renounces the fruit. That is Krishna's request of Arjuna. We have already learned that Karma Yoga and Sankhya Yoga, Gyan, are the same, and that they lead to the same goal. Now we will learn that sannyas, renunciation, is the same as yoga, linking oneself with the Supreme, and that every yogi must be renounced, just as all sannyasis are renounced. Both sannyasis and yogis reject the desire for enjoyment. In other words, a yogi cannot be perfect without renouncing the desires for sense gratification. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, one who has not renounced his intention to enjoy sense gratification, that is to say, his hankering for material fruits, cannot be a yogi. Srila Prabhupada writes, a Krishna-conscious person is simultaneously a sannyasi and a yogi. Owing to his higher spiritual tastes, the yogi renounces both material desires and the desire for prudent pursuits. He thus attains the Yoga Rudra platform. Such a yogi may choose to continue his work, which mostly consists of his prescribed duties, not out of attachment, but to set a proper example. In his purport to text 10, Srila Prabhupada brings Krishna's discussion to its highest point by describing and then emphasizing bhakti, the topmost yoga practice, which Krishna himself will describe in the final verse of this chapter. Srila Prabhupada's purport additionally describes how the direct practice of bhakti automatically fulfills the rigorous requirements of Astanga Yoga. Quote, all these perfections and precautions are perfectly executed when one is directly in Krishna consciousness, because Krishna consciousness means renunciation, wherein there is very little chance for material possessiveness. A Krishna conscious person knows well that everything belongs to Krishna, and thus he is always free from feelings of personal possession. As such, he has no hankering for anything on his own personal account. He knows how to accept things in favor of Krishna consciousness and how to reject things unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. He is always aloof from material things because he is always transcendental, and he is always alone, having nothing to do with persons not in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a person in Krishna consciousness is the perfect yogi. Describing the yoga practice in texts 11 through 12, Krishna explains that the aspiring yogi must live alone, free from fear and attachment. He has to sit still, not stand or sleep, and focus his mind. After teaching proper sitting, Krishna teaches Arjuna how to meditate. The yogi must not roll back and forth or look here and there. He must also be a pure brahmachari. The result attained after long practice is now being described. Text 15. Thus practicing control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist attains to the kingdom of God, or the abode of Krishna, by cessation of material existence. There is no possibility of once becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. He who is temperate in his habits of eating, sleeping, working, and recreation can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to have attained yoga. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. The stage of perfection is called trance or samadhi, when one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being thus situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with undeviated determination and faith. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of false ego, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Gradually, step by step, with full conviction, one should become situated by trance by means of intelligence, and thus the mind should be fixed upon the self alone and should think of nothing else. From whatever and wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. The yogi, whose mind is fixed on me, verily attains the highest happiness by virtue of his identity with Brahman. He is liberated, his mind is peaceful, his passions are quieted, and he is freed from sin. Steady in the self, being free from all material contamination, the yogi achieves the highest perfectional stage of happiness in touch with the Supreme Consciousness. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized man sees me everywhere. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Three great flaws in the process of karma, jnana, and yoga, dangers within each of the processes, make them hazardous for the aspiring transcendentalists. That is, they each offer powerful temptations. In karma, whether it be karma kanda or sakam karma yoga, one tends to become attached to the fruits of one's work. With jnana yoga, the desire to merge into Brahman, thinking of the glories of freedom from both anxiety and service, tempts one. In Astanga yoga, one tends to desire mystic cities so that he can become powerful and even override the laws of nature. A bhakti, however, remains Krishna's servant and thus avoids those hindrances by keeping his mind absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Next, Krishna explains that a yogi needs to be regulated and balanced in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work. Not too much and not too little. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that a yogi's recreation is walking, and Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan mentions that the yogi should restrict his speaking. By controlling all these activities, the yogi remains free from desires and strong in meditation. When the yogi's mind is undisturbed and remains situated in the self, he is called yukta, connected, or, as in Srila Prabhupada's translation, well situated in yoga. Verses 20 through 23 describe the experience of the perfect yogi who has attained the Brahman platform in samadhi. A devotee also experiences such steadiness, but his means to achieve samadhi is easier. Srila Prabhupada confirms this at the end of his purport. The best practice of yoga in this age is Krishna consciousness, which is not baffling. A Krishna conscious person is so happy in his occupation that he does not aspire after any other happiness. There are many impediments, especially in this age of hypocrisy. By practicing Hatha Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga, but there is no such problem in executing Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. Faith is one of the greatest gifts of a practitioner. With determination, it develops over time. Faith can be seen in the advancement of the yogi. One can see the level of faith we have in ourselves and other practitioners through the process of bhakti yoga. Without strong faith, one cannot possess determination. If we believe neither in the goal, sadhya, nor the method, sadhana, to achieve the goal, how will we remain determined? That applies to all spiritual practices. We require faith that following the process will award success. Perfection does not manifest quickly, especially for the Astanga yogi. Therefore, the yogi must have fixed determination and enthusiasm that go beyond even the bounds of one's life. Such a yogi thinks, even if I do not achieve perfection in this life, I must continue. He cannot become discouraged and say, this is taking too long. Is it really worth it? In his purport to text 24, Srila Prabhupada tells the wonderful story of the determined sparrow trying to recover her eggs from the ocean. He then concludes, the practice of yoga, especially bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness, may appear to be a very difficult job. But if anyone follows the principles with great determination, the Lord will surely help. For Lord helps those who help themselves. We cannot succeed without blessings. Still, we have to show our sincerity by making a determined effort. In his final purport to chapter 17, Divisions of Faith, Prabhupada reveals to us that mature faith is love of God. Text 31. The yogi who knows that I am the SuperSoul within all creatures are one, worship me, and remains always in me in all circumstances. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality in all beings, both in their happiness and distress, O Arjuna. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. O Krishna, and to subdue it, it seems to me, more difficult than controlling the wind. The Blessed Lord said, O Almighty-armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by right means is assured of success. That is my opinion. Arjuna said, what is the destination of a man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness, and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? O mighty armed Krishna, does not such a man, being deviated from the path of transcendence, perish like a raven cloud, with no position in any sphere? This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for yourself, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. The Blessed Lord said, O son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with any destruction either in this world nor in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Or he takes birth in a family of transcendentalists who is surely great in wisdom. Verily, such a birth is rare in this world. On taking such a birth, he again revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist striving for yoga stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contamination, then ultimately, after many, many bursts of practice, he attains the supreme goal. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the imperialist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. And of all the yogis, he who abides in me with great faith, worshiping me in transcendental love and service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. In text 31, Krishna states that I and the Supersoul are the same. In his commentary to verse 31, Srila Prabhupada explains that a yogi who is practicing meditation on the Supersoul sees within himself the plenary portion of Krishna as Vishnu with 4 hands, holding a conch shell, wheel, club, and lotus flower. The yogi should know that Vishnu is non-different from Krishna. Krishna in the form of Supersoul is situated in everyone's heart. Arjuna responds to Krishna stating that the system of yoga you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. It is turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. Krishna agrees with Arjuna's analysis. Srila Prabhupada writes, the difficulty of controlling the obstinate mind, as expressed by Arjuna, is accepted by the personality of Godhead. But at the same time, he suggests that by practice and detachment it is possible. What is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the Supersoul, restraining the senses and mind, and observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. By the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in the 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost of such devotional engagements is hearing about Krishna. This is a very powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from the activities not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in spirit. After understanding the formidable obstacles to progress in yoga, and after hearing of the processes to remove them, Arjuna speaks verse 37. Arjuna said, O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindlessness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? Arjuna now wants to know what happens to a person who does not succeed in this practice. Such a person may have faith in the authority of yoga scriptures and with such faith engage in yoga practice. He is not trying to cheat, but somehow his mind deviates him before he attains success. Thus he has made progress, but he dies before he reaches perfection. Krishna responds that a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction, either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan explains that by using the word tata, my friend, Krishna is showing Arjuna special affection, addressing him as a loving father would address his son, or a spiritual master his intimate disciple. Krishna then says that after taking birth again, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success. One can attain bhakti yoga through a gradual Vedic process, through karma, jnana, and yoga. If one is fortunate, however, he can come in contact with Krishna's pure devotee and directly take to Krishna consciousness by hearing the Shastra. He learns to act in full faith. Gradually, he progresses to a point where Krishna has entered his very existence, and the devotee becomes always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. That ends this episode. Thank you for watching. Hope you return when we will discuss Chapter 7, entitled Knowledge of the Absolute. Hare Krishna.
Tarakam Bande Rupa Sanatana Raghunatam Sri Jiva Gopalakam Krishna Kirtana Ganana Tana Param Premamritam Dhira Jana Priya Kana Nima Sadam Pujito Krishna Kirtana Ganana